Hi everyone, this is Marsa. Today we'll be reviewing the Huion Kamvas 13 Gen 3, kindly sent to me by Huion for an honest review. I'm not a tech expert, so I'll be sharing my thoughts from a perspective of someone who has been drawing on an iPad for the past 6 years and wants to compare the drawing experience with this display. We'll unbox it, test it out with some artwork, and go over the pros and cons to help you decide if it's the right choice for you. Okay, let's get started. So let's talk about the tablet for a sec. The Huion Kamvas 13 Gen 3 is a graphic display, which means you need to connect it to a computer to use programs like Photoshop, Clip Studio Paint, Krita, and so on. The screen size is 13 inches, pretty much the same as my iPad, which I love because it doesn't take up too much desk space. The resolution is Full HD and it's priced at $249 without the stand or $269 with it, which is super affordable for a graphic display. Honestly, you guys, spend the extra 20 bucks and get the stand. It's so much more comfortable to use. I'm not really into the whole technical breakdown, so I'm gonna skip that part, but if you need more specifics, I will leave a link in the description with all the details. Alright, let's open it up and see what's in the box. The first thing I noticed was this Huion Pan Display Color Calibration Report, which, as far as I understand, is like a certificate saying the screen colors are pre-calibrated for accuracy. Next up is the display itself. The design is pretty sleek with matte finish and it feels really nice to the touch. On the left side, there are several buttons you can customize for shortcuts, along with two dials that can be set up however you want. I ended up using the top dial to zoom in and out of the canvas and the bottom one to adjust brush size. It's super handy. It comes with a bunch of cables to connect it to your computer, and we'll get to that in a bit. They also sent me a stand which I really appreciated. It's lightweight, adjustable, and just super practical. Next is the manual, which is simple, clear, and full of illustrations. It's easy to follow and shows exactly how to set up and use the tablet. There's also a drawing glove included. It's a really nice touch. In addition, there is a screen cleaning cloth and an extra cable that came in handy later. I will show you what I used it for. There's also a pen holder, and when you open it, there are several spare nibs inside, which I really appreciated. This one looks and feels much better. And finally, there's the pen, which feels really nice in the hand. It has 3 customizable buttons, and compared to my previous pen, the nib is thinner, which makes it much easier to use. Also, my old one had only 2 buttons, so having 3 now is a nice improvement. Alright, let's set this up and start drawing. First, I set up the stand at around a 40-degree angle, which is my favorite for drawing. And now for the cables. One end goes into the display, and the other end splits into 2 USB ports and 1 HDMI. So as you can see, my MacBook doesn't have those ports. So I'm using this little adapter that has both HDMI and USB input. I plug it into my laptop, connect the black cables to the adapter, and then for the red USB cable, I will use the second cable that comes in the box. I connect the two together like this, plug the other end into the power adapter, and then into the wall outlet. After that, I head to the Huion website. At the bottom of the page, there is a section for driver and manual where I select the display model. Mine is the Kamvas 13 Gen 3, and then choose my operating system, which is macOS. I download the driver, and you can also download the detailed user manual from the same place. Once the file is downloaded, I open Finder, go to the Downloads folder, click on the file, and drag the driver icon into the application folder. After that, the tablet icon appears in my Launchpad. When I click on it, a bunch of pop-up windows appear asking for permissions and access. It's really important to allow these permissions as the display won't work without them. Once that's done, I get to the tablet and pen settings. Here you can configure hotkeys, calibrate the monitor, adjust the pen settings, and more. At first, the tablet automatically set itself as the primary screen, and I tried to mess with it and make my laptop as the main screen, but honestly, it was a whole mess. So I just left it as it was. Everything works perfectly this way, and I would recommend you do the same. To calibrate the monitor, you just tap the red dots with the pen, and then you're good to go. I opened up Photoshop, and yeah, the first thing I did out of habit was try to pinch zoom the screen like in Procreate. Spoiler, that's not how it works here. So yeah, I'm using the little dial instead. So it took me like 3 days to get used to working on this tablet, which is pretty normal, I guess. Some people might find it easier, others harder. It's all good, just give yourself time. The tricky part is you've got to use both hands and remember all the shortcut keys you set up. You're not just using the tablet buttons, but also your keyboard. The first 2 days were rough. I was fighting with the screens, messing around with the settings, and ended up breaking everything. Nothing worked right, and I was so frustrated. Eventually, I decided to reinstall the drivers and just leave everything as it was. And guess what? Everything worked perfectly. Once I got used to the shortcuts, I was literally unstoppable. Working on this tablet is super smooth. The pen is really comfortable, the image is super sharp with no pixels or glitchy effects, and the colors are vibrant and rich. Honestly, I am obsessed. If you are totally new to this and have never used Photoshop or any drawing program really, it might take you some time to get the hang of it. Finding the right tools, setting up your workspace, learning the shortcuts, stuff like that. But once you get comfortable, the whole process becomes so much more enjoyable. And now let's talk about the pros and cons of this tablet because I think they're important to note. And let's start with pros. The display quality is great, clean and detailed, so your drawings look exactly how you want them to. The colors are accurate and vibrant, which is exactly what you need for creating illustrations. Honestly, I was surprised at how good the display looked. And when I compared it to my iPad, I didn't notice much of a difference in resolution. For me, it's a huge plus because it means I'm not sacrificing quality, even though this tablet is much more budget friendly. The pen is completely battery free, which is such a great feature because you never have to worry about charging it or running out of the power in the middle of your work. It's always ready to go, which makes the whole experience so much more convenient. The pen is incredibly comfortable to work with, whether you're drawing fine lines or rendering detailed areas. I really love how it responds to pressure. It feels natural and gives you a lot more control over your strokes. This makes it easier to achieve the exact effect you are going for, whether it's delicate details or bold, expressive lines. The size of this tablet can be both a pro and a con depending on your needs. For me personally, it's definitely a plus because it doesn't take up much desk space and my desk is pretty small. A larger display simply wouldn't fit. Plus, when I'm not drawing, I can just unplug the cables and move it aside. So it's out of the way and I can use the space for other things. At the same time, the actual drawing area is spacious enough to work comfortably, and there's plenty of room for everything I need. And of course, the price. Seriously, for this price, it's such a gem, especially for beginners who don't want to spend a fortune on professional tablets or an iPad. Alright, now let's talk about the cons. These might be subjective, so what feels like a downside to me might not be an issue for you. It only works when connected to a computer or laptop. So it's not exactly portable, right? Even though the tablet is compact and I have a laptop, I can't use it on plane or train like I can with an iPad. And sure, you could bring it to a cafe, but for me personally, the thought of setting everything up in public is already a deal breaker. That's just me though, some artists do this all the time and they love it. First setup and installation might be tricky for beginners, but the good news is you only need to do it once at the very beginning, or if you ever need to reinstall the drivers. The manual is really clear and easy to follow, so as long as you stick to it, the process is pretty straightforward. Once everything is set up, you don't have to worry about it again. Your settings are saved, and you can just connect the tablet and start drawing whenever you want. The cables were a bit of a hassle at first, and my laptop didn't have the right port, so I had to use adapters to make everything work. It felt a little messy, but honestly, I think I'm just spoiled by the simplicity of the iPad. After a few uses, I got used to the setup, and now it's not a big deal, it's just a part of the process. This display doesn't have a touch function like the iPad, and I've lost count of how many times I've tried to zoom in or out with my fingers. It's just a habit I picked up after 6 years of using an iPad, so it takes a little adjustment. If you're starting fresh though, this won't be an issue for you at all. Honestly, these cons are pretty minor compared to the pros. As someone who's used to the convenience and comfort of an iPad, I can say I will definitely use this display for Photoshop. It just has more possibilities compared to Procreate. And now let's compare the iPad and this drawing display to see their strengths and weaknesses. If you are a beginner trying to decide between an iPad and drawing display, here are a few things to consider. Let's start with ease of use and setup, where the iPad clearly has the advantage. It's as simple as buying it, downloading Procreate, and getting straight to drawing. A display like this requires more steps. You have to connect it, install the drivers, calibrate the monitor, which takes more effort. Now let's talk about the price. A new iPad Pro 11-inch with 256 GB of storage costs around $1,000 without any accessories, which is pretty expensive if you are planning to use it just for drawing. In this case, I would definitely recommend the Huion as a better option, especially if you are on budget. When it comes to portability, the iPad is the clear winner. You can draw anywhere, on a bus, in bed, or even outdoors. It's completely self-contained and compact, so you don't need any extra devices to use it. The display, on the other hand, has limited mobility, but it doesn't mean it's impossible to use outside the house. It just takes a little more effort. When it comes to screen quality, it's really close to me. The iPad might have a slight advantage in screen resolution and sharpness, but for me, the difference isn't dramatic enough to be a deciding factor. If you've noticed something different, let me know in the comments below. Now, when it comes to Apple Pencil and the pen, it's hard to choose because they're both excellent tools, but they work differently. The pen is battery-free, which makes it super convenient, and I love how it feels while drawing. I feel like I have more control over my strokes. The Apple Pencil, on the other hand, is lighter, smaller, and offers a more natural drawing experience, if that makes sense. It's tough to say which one is better because they're both great. And when it comes to line and brushes, it's really about what works for you. And here I'm comparing the software, not the hardware. I'll be talking about Procreate and Photoshop. Other programs might give you a different experience. Procreate's lines are super precise and the brush settings are nearly endless. In Photoshop, brush settings are a bit more limited and the cursor lags slightly behind the pen. For me, that actually helps with line control, but again, it's personal preference. Next is software functionality. This really depends on how much storage your iPad has. If you've got a plenty of space, like at least 256 GB, Procreate runs smoothly. However, it does come with some limits on layer count and file size. With Photoshop, there are no such restrictions, so you can work on huge files without any issues. And now let's talk about glitches. With Huion, I had one issue where the pen cursor went completely off. It wasn't aligned with tip at all. I tried everything, recalibrating, restarting, but nothing worked until I reinstalled the drivers. After that, it's been running perfectly every time I connected, and I haven't had to reinstall anything since. On the iPad side, I haven't noticed any major issues, but Procreate has crashed unexpectedly a few times, and I've also lost a few artworks, which seems to be a Procreate issue, I guess. If this ever happened to you, let me know in the comments. I'm curious how many of us have experienced this. Alright, time to bring it all together. I think for beginners or anyone looking for a high-quality display at an affordable price, Huion is a fantastic option. It's honestly hard to beat at this price point. If you're willing to invest more and want the convenience or portability, the iPad is definitely worth considering. At the end of the day, being a professional isn't about the most expensive tools. It's more about using tools that fit your workflow and feel comfortable to use. And here's the illustration I created with it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you for watching this video to the end. I hope you learned something new. And if you did, don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for your support, guys, and see you next time.